All right. I think I'm going to start that again. Did you hear any of that, Deb?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, let me start that over. So, greetings. Welcome to Relationships with Intention. We are so happy that you joined us. I am your host, Shijuan. Do us a favor, please like, share, follow, and engage throughout today's session. I am so excited about my special guest on this evening. I have with me Reverend Deborah Yonkers. Reverend Deborah Yonkers is an executive director and founder of Loving Grace Healing Centers. For 22 years, Deb was known for her creative, quality, and professional framing. Nationally, she won awards for marketing and events. She also held a chair on the national board for Thomas Kincaid's Galleries. In addition, she was the art gallery owner of White Fox Framing Gallery. Today's artist, also a local educational TV show, and Touched by the Light Galleries. After the birth of her daughter at age 44, she changed directions and went back to get her degree in psychology while working as an interim minister in spiritual formation and as a community director for spiritual care. Through these experiences and years of volunteering as a community prayer coordinator with Unity Christian Music Festival and at Set Free Ministries in Grand Rapids, Michigan, she developed a passion to see God make people well with his truth. Today, she is a licensed minister, fine arts artist, and mother of two gifted and talented girls. Deb has 14 years of experience in helping people heal from their core hurts at Loving Grace Healing with partnerships throughout our community. Welcome to Relationships with Intention, Deb. How are you?
Great. Thank you. And thanks for having me, Shijuan.
You are so welcome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get things started with our first question, Deb. And our first question is, what is trauma?
So if I was to go through psychology today, they're going to tell you trauma is two things. Most people think of trauma as something horrific happening, or they think of PTSD and think it has to be something that happened in a war or something huge. There's a lot of physical trauma that people may recognize. However, trauma can be just emotional as well. So if someone yelled at you and startled you, or it's just not part of your personality, that can create trauma. So in the first case, the fall caused by physical trauma, like if someone fell and got a concussion or maybe broke an arm or was in a car accident, it seems pretty clear cut. It could be argued that, in fact, indirectly, emotional trauma still affects that person. This is because emotions come from thinking about the trauma over and over and over, and you just can't forget it. So trauma is something that tends to stick. Love and Grace helps people with the second one, the emotional form of trauma. It can be emotional part that happened from the fall, or it can be something in life experience of neglect or something that truly happened.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Can you give us an example of a neglect that may occur in a person's life that could cause trauma?
There are a lot of children that we work with that, or adults that are still dealing with their childhood trauma, and it tends to be the parent might have been absent and the child can't stop wondering what they're doing wrong, or what they, even as an adult, what they did as a child to make them the one child that the parents didn't pay any attention to, or however they interpreted the event, maybe that they're unwanted, that they're unliked, that they're unworthy, that there's just something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could this happen as a result of divorce as well?
Oh, definitely. A lot of children blame themselves. Yes. And so again, trauma being defined emotionally is something you can't stop thinking about and stop trying to figure out. Um, you even physical responses to the trauma can happen even though it was emotional, where it starts to affect different parts of their mind. So
Very
most
good.
definitely.
Thank you. What
Mhm.
are some physiological symptoms a person may experience resulting from trauma?
I see a lot of headaches and stomach aches. But it depends on what the trauma was. So if there was an injury or misuse of part of their body, they can feel pain in that area. And a lot of times doctors will diagnose it as there's nothing wrong. It's something that's just in their mind, where actually is telling a story that there is something that happened, even if they don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So headaches can be one of the physical symptoms a
Yeah.
person might experience. Anything else that you can think of that might?
Well, physically, it can be pain anywhere in the body.
Mhm.
It also can be triggers that cause emotional behavior in all the wrong times. So anger is a big one. Anger is, to
Mhm.
me, a symptom, not a character flaw. And it's really when there's something that happens emotionally and it doesn't line up with what is going on at the moment, it's a
Mhm.
red flag that there is something else that is causing this to happen. And it's time to really start listening and digging into their feelings and beliefs.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. How long might it take for a person to recover from a traumatic experience? Is there a time frame?
There really isn't. Just like loss is different for everybody. Trauma is also different for everybody. And I want to say, in a healthy way, it could take a lifetime to recover from trauma. And I'm not saying that in the way that there's no hope, because there is hope. What there is that I'm saying might take a lifetime is you'll learn the different depths and so much about yourself and how you react to life. For example, a childhood trauma, you may have learned to protect yourself by hiding and checking out or numbing out. And it might take a long time to untrain that. And then they become tools in your tool belt. So even though you're doing well from trauma, it's still something that's there, but eventually we want to get to a point that is a safety trigger if something comes up, something that you protect yourself with. So,
Mhm. I'm glad
oh,
you brought up hiding, Deb, because one of the things I wonder if there are times people might create something to do in order to escape
yeah.
traumatic feelings or just painful events in their life altogether.
I think, not I think, I really know that a lot of the behavior that would be unacceptable in society, or addictions, promiscuity, smoking, um, shopping too much, all these things are issues. There's symptoms that there's something else going on. So it's so um, important to realize that when you are listening to somebody or you're seeing a reaction to somebody, don't pull the naughty card. Naughty is only an issue, a symptom of something else.
Mhm. And this includes lying and stealing as well. A lot
Oh,
of people don't realize that lying and stealing um, could be the byproduct of trauma as well.
absolutely. Lying and stealing can fill a space. It can give you an avoidance habit. So instead of sitting still and being quiet and thinking, it's like, I'm going to go do something, and that may be their something. And if they sit still, then the thoughts and the memories come to mind. So um, it's important to renew their thinking, to change those thoughts, or to set up. Sometimes I have people put note cards around the room where they would go to set their first go-tos. If it would be write something in a marker on a mirror, put it on your chair where you would go sit, put it on your steering wheel, put it in your places so that you can remind yourself in that moment, because you don't think straight. Your mind goes into a different mode. The other thing is doing things that are extreme risk can create a happy dopamine. So if I'm stealing or I'm lying, I can be creating a happy dopamine. The problem is that's a natural happiness, if you want to call it that. The problem is, though, you need to get one bigger and better all the time. The same as people that drink or use drugs inappropriately is the same reaction. Sexual promiscuity can be the same reaction. It's looking for that escape.
Also, cutting
Definitely one. Yeah, cutting is in the Bible. Most people don't realize that, but cutting causes a pain in a location, which causes it to leave the mind for a moment, because all your nerves, the messages are going to that location, and it's a release to them. So if you see somebody cutting, again, it's not because they're emo or because they're have something that they're stuck in. It's because they're crying out for help. And they don't know how to get rid of the pain.
Okay. Now, will you be giving us tools to help an individual through that later on, Deb, or should we process it now?
I have 3-4 tools pulled out, and I wish I would have laminated them. I printed them, but we'll talk about them. And then if people want to contact me, we can email them.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. And then I made sure to include your email address in the description as well as the comment box for those who would like to send Deb an email. So make sure you look for that.
So I can show you. You tell me how well this works out. This would be one of the first steps that I would show people. Now it would. So it's a doodle your thoughts. I actually hijacked this idea from a prayer doodle. So you just draw a circle. You don't have to use the form. Draw a circle in the middle of the page, and you do doodles all around it. I printed it, so I did thought boxes. In the middle, I tell people to pick, use color pencil or crayons to pick your least favorite. Write what hurts you in the middle. What happened, what the trauma was. And then how did it make you feel? Put different feelings in all these boxes. And so, or if you're doing it on a piece of paper, in each one of the extra loops, put different feelings, or what you believe about yourself, especially those that you believe are unhealthy or people have told you are unhealthy, put those in there as well. And then that's step 1. So it's digging things out. But the second part, step 2, is, well, I had said that I've first volunteered at Set Free Ministries. He uses a lot of I am statements and who I am in Christ. So we have another page that I have all the I ams on it. So you take your first list, take the negative words, look for something positive to write over the top. And then I encourage people to take those and put them on a card and keep them in their pocket, purse, something nearby so that they can use them. Or those places, like I said, to put them on a table near your go-to chair and write them on the mirror. Because the negative things have a positive truth that's trying to be buried. And usually that negative word from the trauma, the negative feeling from the trauma is the opposite of what's true. Now there's truth in trauma. I'm not saying that, but I'm going to talk a lot about lying. So lies that we believe, not lying, lies we believe. So And then that
Mhm.
positive, when you write the positive over the top, that's part of helping you get out of the negative thoughts, the overwhelming thoughts.
Okay, that's really good, Deb. Were you gonna say anything else after
No, go
that,
ahead.
Deb?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Um, so my next question, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, is after experiencing trauma, do people avoid certain people, places, and things?
Mhm. People do and probably should avoid certain people, places, and things.
Mm-hmm.
There, especially as a Christian, sometimes that gets skewed a little, and they think they should take on the abuse. That's not our job. That's not our role. And it's important to have healthy boundaries. Sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
going to include immediate family. And it's not, if it's not, I tell them if it's not okay for your neighbor to talk to you that way, and if it's not okay for them to treat you that way, it's not okay for your immediate family to treat you that way. And people often think they have to be a good person. And actually honoring themselves and saying no is important. Sometimes these places too, they won't go to a certain place. I am not a fan of desensitizing, at least not in the beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not at all. It's causing
Yeah.
re-traumatizing. And
Right.
people are like, well, just do it, get over it, get over it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you're re-traumatizing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of cutting things off. And part of what unfortunately you learn in some of the traumas is where you shouldn't be and how to keep yourself safer. That's a
Mm-hmm.
tool. Now there's a tool you can use. But so you don't put yourself back in those same situations, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely not with the same people.
Mm-hmm. Safety is always first.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, most definitely. Um, Sorry, that was the wrong thought. So
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Are there times when people blame themselves for the trauma they experienced?
I first said always, always. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the answer should be almost always. Everything's not always or never, so somewhere in between. But
Mm-hmm.
almost everybody blames themselves for one reason or
Right.
another. Either
Mm-hmm.
they think they shouldn't have been there, they should have not wore what they wore, they should have, there's just so many reasons. And then if they're not blaming themselves, they're taking on responsibility of someone else's actions. Well, they didn't know better.
Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not okay. It doesn't matter if they didn't know better. It's not okay. Hurting people do hurt people, but that doesn't mean it's okay to be a victim of it. So yeah, most definitely. Sometimes people's lives will never return to what they were before, but they can live life healed.
Mm-hmm.
Things will be different when one chooses to renew their mind. So in doing that, we have to change what we think about ourselves and think about the situation. And that's another tool where I would use a healing prayer. And our toolbox has a basic like 10 sections in it, not a whole lot. But one of them is laying down those feelings and wrong beliefs at the foot of the cross and asking Jesus to
Yes.
come take them, really being willing to get rid of the pain and not having to hold it on as a covering.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're able to do that and when they're able to release people, sometimes you have to say you have to stop playing God. It's not your role, it's God's role. So
Yes.
stop blaming yourself, because then you're making yourself all responsible. That's God's job, and it's God's job to call them into accountability for what they did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good, Deb. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's see. So, how does trauma play a part sorry, I asked you that question. Hold on.
Mhm.
Can people take on different personalities resulting from trauma?
Yes. Some of it can be good, and some of it can be very, very bad. So
Mhm.
it can alter a person's personality. They could change from sweet and trusting to fearful and angry. That is a very common line, and they're looking for something bad to happen everywhere because that was so traumatic is all they think about anyways, and then they can see it in everything. So that would be one. Sometimes people get stuck in emotional immaturity. So it may not be a different personality, but if they were, excuse me, traumatized at age 3, they might be a grown-up acting like they're
Yeah.
3.
Yep.
They stay in that immature emotional state. And so when you meet somebody and you're like, that's just odd, there's
Mhm.
probably something there. It's probably where they've been hurt. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So people will also add unhealthy beliefs and untruths, which I would call lies sometimes, to the story.
Mhm.
Not making it up. That's not what I mean. It's just in their understanding, especially depending on what age they were or where they were, their worldview is not expanded enough to be able to put those things into words, to be able to understand it. And then there's sometimes trauma will happen. And I had one lady who had 40 some different personalities. And so every time she was traumatized, a piece of her broke off is the best way to understand that. And it would also appear that, well, not would, it did appear that there was one personality that was a guardian, and that is very, very common. Maybe if there's only a guardian in the original personality, but it is so common because they're looking for a place to be safe, and that break off will give that guardian the opportunity to step in to keep that person safe, so that person doesn't remember, doesn't know what happened when they're re-traumatized. So is that easy to understand? I was trying to find a way to say that really simple without creating fear.
So my question then is, could this happen with a person who, let's say this individual who has experienced trauma, let's say this individual still, and then when confronted about it, he or she may say, that wasn't me.
Yeah, because it wasn't. It wasn't. Every version of this break off to survive the trauma, remember, that's what they're doing. Actually even they have a different personality, they have a different name, they can be different genders, they can be different ages, and they don't. I do know I've had a few clients that knew their different personalities. That's rare. For the most part, they do not. But some of the clues are they don't remember what happened 2 hours ago. The things that they own, they don't know where they acquired them from. They're missing lots of time, and people say, hey, why did I see you at such and such? And you're like, I never go to a place like that, or I never talk like that. Those are not liars. Those are people that just have no clue. They have likely been traumatized, and they are just acting out in a protective mode to take care of the different situations that arise.
Wow, it's so powerful, so powerful. That's why. Go ahead, Deb.
Well, and I was going to say, there's another piece. Well, actually, you might ask this one later. There's another piece too, that God actually gives people the ability to not remember. I do believe that's a God-given gift. I'm not talking about the multiple personalities. I'm talking about something a little bit more. Because sometimes people just
Right.
don't remember the past. They don't remember the
Right.
trauma. And I believe God puts
Right.
it in a safe place. And
Right.
sometimes it's meant to be dealt with at another date. But other times it's meant to never be dealt with. It's just something we can't handle.
Right. Right.
Sorry.
That's good. Thanks. Nope. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mhm.
That's why I'm so passionate about this, because a lot of people don't have this information, and it needs to be shared so that people can gain this knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity for them to learn.
Yes, yes. To God be the glory. Let's see. Can trauma impact people's ability to function day to day?
Oh,
And if
yeah.
so, how?
My first example, I would say if you look at somebody and they're always late for work. Sorry, my allergies are bad. I keep wanting to cough. They're
That's okay.
they're always late for work. And I'll give you a live example of someone that worked for me. Never showed up on Mondays, knew that he drank all weekend, disappeared on payday with his check and sometimes other people's check. And what the problem was, he was drinking and using narcotics. But the problem isn't the drinking and using narcotics.
Right.
The problem is the trauma that happened to him over and over
Yes.
again in his life, that he drinks and used narcotics to try to numb out. So it is affecting whether he can work. It's affecting whether you can keep him as an employee. It's affecting what he does and his relationships, and family cut him off. And not that it's not okay. Family deserves boundaries too. It's just a difficult situation. People don't eat, they don't sleep, they often, I'm trying to remember where I was thinking about adding a story, but they often find themselves so overwhelmed. It's a whole nother issue for them, and they're just trying to find a way to escape. So they might be losing weight because they forgot to eat for 4 days. That's just unheard of for me. So that's not going to happen. But they just stop taking care of themselves, or they forget to take their medication, or they forget to wear their oxygen. Things that we think is so necessary in life, and how could you ever forget? They lose focus. Oh my goodness, with children, this is so bad. One of the things that children do is act out in class because they're frustrated. They're either angry or stuck, which is kind of the same thing, and they can't learn. So a student failing isn't, people have different gifts. So some kids are not meant to be mathematicians and all do get the same grades. But if they're unable to learn because they have been listening to the traumatic stuff happening at home, worrying about who's going to be there when they get back, unable to sleep, seeing things they shouldn't see, experiencing things they shouldn't experience, they can't function. They can't learn. So, yeah.
Yeah, you see that so many times when children experience that in a home and environment where they're not eating, or they don't know where they're going to sleep. They hear fighting, and they just don't know what they may experience on a given day, and then it be expected to come to school and be able to sit still when they can't. They can't focus. They can't sit still.
And they can't stop worrying about whoever got left back at home.
Right.
So there's another little boy that we had one time, and he was hearing things. So we ended up buying him headphones so he could sleep through the night. And that allowed him to be able to get some rest, but it didn't make him stop worrying. And he liked to sleep hiding underneath the covers. He was afraid of gunshots. And people don't realize we have a lot of services in our community that feed the children. We have a lot of services in our community that shelter families. We don't have a lot of services that are listening to the children and
Exactly.
giving them tools to work through it. And that's one of our programs is focused on that. But that is a necessity. It have to do the whole package. Yes, they need food. Yes, they need clothing. Yes, they need a meal on the weekend, but they need somebody that cares.
That's right. That's right. My next question, Deb, is how does rejection cause trauma?
At first I was thinking, this is something you and I talked about years and years ago.
Yes.
Most people use the word, I am unwanted. I am unlovable. And those are the result of that rejection. And when talking to a parent, they will say, well, I never existed. My parents never cared about me. I was cheated out of a family. I was never given any value. They've lost their identity and purpose. They think they were never supposed to exist. And when they have that kind of mindset, how can we expect them to survive and thrive and raise their own family when they're still deep inside, don't feel loved, don't feel wanted? And yeah, as a community, we really need to come around people and actually, community isn't always, family's not always blood. Sometimes it's community, sometimes it's friends.
That's right.
And it's important to pay attention to those moments, those God moments where there's an encounter and if all you offer is a smile, and it's an encouragement to them. Recognize they exist. Recognize a neighbor that's struggling, and maybe, well, I work full time. I have a teenager, and she's in sports, and we have after school activities, and I work more than full time. And so I don't see the neighbors like I used to, but there's a house across the street from me that has a ton of people living in it, especially did over the summer. And I was given 3 gallons of milk for 2 people. I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm like, hey, well, how about a gallon of milk? And she's, oh my goodness, you have no idea how many people live here. But just finding a moment to share, to touch somebody else's life.
Wow. Yes. Yep. And it only takes a minute or two just to show someone how much you care. And it can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. And I don't know how much time I'm taking because I talk a lot, but I had a gal, I had a gal one name. Her name was Patty. She has.
Looks like we lost Deb. We will wait for her to join us again. If you have any questions, please type those into the comment box, and I will try to ask Deb as soon as she has a moment. Thanks for joining, Tony and Mohammed. I want to say Fatima, Diamond. I saw Cormica. Let's see. Not sure if Deb's internet connection was lost or what. Oh, here she is.
Well, now we're lost our video again. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
that's technology for you.
absolutely.
All right. So we were discussing if rejection causes trauma.
Yes. So did you hear anything about the story of Patty?
Start the story again.
Okay. So when I met Patty, Patty was referred by a church, and the ladies had been teaching her everything they know, and Patty to them, which is somebody they were trying to be nice. They did her hair and visited her on occasion. Patty had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So Patty was living in a home now because she had attempted suicide so many times that the last one did a lot of ripping and tearing to her body, and she was on oxygen and in a wheelchair. Patty's trauma often happened in a shower as she was growing up, but it started when she was in a playpen and she could see the man in the big black shoes coming to pick her up. And the rejection is, she had other siblings, but they weren't beaten and abused like she was. She was tied to the bed for days at times. And the other family went around pretending they were normal. They went out in public like they were normal and would lock her in a closet. And so many things happened to her. I have stories that I could tell people that Stephen King couldn't write. So they're so traumatic, they're so yucky that they're just unimaginable. And then to believe that they're real is so unimaginable. Well, Patty's rejection went so deep that she's now in her 50s. These started when she was in a playpen. She couldn't make her nightmares go away. Her triggers came again and again. And even when people tried to minister to her, the church ladies were sweet, but they didn't know that every time they used the word Father or God or Jesus or Holy Spirit, they were re-triggering her because her abusers would use those words. So
Wow.
really listening to people is so very important. But Patty and I got to the point where we did everything. I didn't know what else to show her. So we started painting pictures, and kind of on the line of, she would tell me what scripture or what she'd want to bring to life. So this last painting she did, what she wanted to bring to life her favorite song, which was Bridge Over Troubled Waters. So as I coached her on how to create what was in her mind, I asked her, so what is it about this place? And she says, there was one time that I escaped my tormentors, and this is where I went. And I said, oh, there's a little bridge over a stream and there's a swing. So what is going on here? She says, I said, is it possible that Bridge Over Troubled Waters is your favorite song because this is the one time you escaped? And what were you doing on the swing? She says, I was there with God. He was swinging with me. So that is, anyways, an encounter that brought her to actually into a real relationship with Jesus Christ. So she began to find God didn't cause these things to happen. People made horrible choices. So
exactly. I have a question from a viewer, Deb, and the question is, for some of the things that you are talking about, would they be considered mental illnesses?
A lot of the times I don't, we never diagnose. We are not, my team are all people helping people heal. We call them encouragers. So I wouldn't be able to legally say they're mental illnesses from my perspective, but people come with me tagged with a title and will say they're mental illness. Now, schizophrenia is a mental illness. So I didn't diagnose that. That's something that she had that someone else had done. What we do is still help build their whole identity, purpose, and truth. Help them build who they are created to be.
That's good. Identity, purpose, and truth.
Yep. Then they have hope.
Yep. That's good. Let's see. What advice would you give parents who have a child who is suffering from trauma?
So the first thing is to listen and believe. It's so important to have that child know that they were listened to. Don't try to reason with them, and don't try to convince them that their view is wrong. I would leave that to a professional, because you're biased as well. And as a parent, we want to fix our kids. But we forget to listen sometimes, and have to understand it from their worldview. We have to understand, sometimes my child will say, well, when I was little, I did this or this happened. I'm like, boy, that wasn't true at all. But from her worldview and her memory, it's true. So I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying we have to understand from where they're coming from. So to help children, listening is key. The kids that we see, because we listen and we do all these other skill training and lots of wonderful things to help them work through their crisis and to prepare them using more positive statements. But because we listen, they feel loved. So that's a big piece for the parents.
Yes, that's huge. Just by listening alone.
Yeah. I just had the kids come back to school. Well, they did in September, and we just start in October. And the kids that were in the program that we work in the school was there. I asked them, so what did you learn? What are you hoping to learn from us this year? And this is our number one statement. And you would have thought they were in the room together. We are listened to. we have a safe place to tell what hurts,
Mm-hmm.
and we're loved. That's it. All the fancy stuff we do, was core to them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Deb, how does a person heal from trauma that he or she does not even remember?
I like that question. And
Mm-hmm.
because I do what I do because I've been through stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
Muskegon did their own questionnaire survey of adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So up to the recent family reunion, I would have told you I had 9 out of 10 of those adverse experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have memories of the traumas.
Right.
And after the family experience, I realized I have 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
The family
Mm-hmm.
reunion, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do from our perspective, we're always going to, well, how did you feel? Well, I don't remember an incident, but when I get into probably a similar situation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
my reactions, my inside knows.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
So if I can, in a dream world, work with a parent and a child, the parent in their own sessions, the children in their own sessions, teach the parent, first of all, or a spouse, or a friend, somebody that can hold you accountable, because it's not always children, but someone that holds you accountable, teach you the process, and then all of a sudden you went from nice to angry, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then that person needs to say, what just happened? Let's backtrack. Maybe somebody just walked across the picture and wearing brown, and you don't like brown. It triggers you every
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so why don't you like brown? Well, they might know and might not know. Well, then,
right.
How does brown make you feel? So we go back to our 2 favorite questions. How's that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Not others. I don't care about anybody else. How does it make you feel? And what does it
Right.
make you believe?
Mm-hmm.
And then that tells the story. We don't have to have the memory. We don't. We think you do, but you don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
and then work through those and replace them with truth. And we do have a healing prayer that if people choose to use that, it lays all those wrong beliefs, body memories, how it made you feel at the feet of Jesus. It tells them that I want to be more like you. I want to leave everything with you. And I want you to please forgive me for putting these things as kind of icons, protectors in my life. And ask him to come and replace him with his truth. And sometimes people have real thoughts and visions of what God's truth really is, or it often is just a thought that raced through their mind and they're like, well, what was that? And then I always have people share it out loud, because then the next question is that something God would say to encourage you? So is it good or is it bad? If it's good, can we say thank you, Jesus, for it? So yeah.
That's good. That is really good. So they don't have to remember the event, but just going back through and recalling, how does this trigger make you feel, and what are your beliefs about it, can help that person heal, even though he or she does not remember.
Exactly. I had a prayer friend years ago, because everybody loved to, we did practice on one another when I was training. And they loved to get my case, because they were going to crack the code. They're going to figure out why I don't have these memories. And another thing, when you don't have memories, is one of the girls I worked with was an emergency room doctor. And most things travel up and down your spine, and they go through your mind and back and forth, except smells. Smells is a different sensory in a different location. And when you have blockages, you can still smell. So you might be triggered by smells. And Just a little fun fact on the side too. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that is so true. There are people who are triggered by smells as well.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So the next question kind of ties to the one you just discussed, and it asks, how do you help a loved one realize they are suffering from trauma?
Speak truth, but in love. That does not mean, so I just felt that does not mean you can say whatever comes to mind. It
Mm-hmm.
means that you listen first. You accept what they say, their feelings, their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You do not come back, well, they need to know the truth, and you hit them between the eyes with all this stuff you pour out on them. That is not
Mm-hmm.
speaking it. And then they go, yeah, I just did it because I love you. No, you didn't. You just re-traumatized me.
Right,
so,
right.
so it's really important. I can't stress enough is to listen, then ask for permission to share something. So
Mm.
my people are trained not to be the teacher that speaks at you all the time and just or some people go to prayer groups and they want people to speak into them. I want you to learn how wonderful you are and do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing when you're trying to share with a loved one. Ask permission and then I give a grace card. If you don't like what my thoughts are,
Mm-hmm.
throw them away. Don't
Mm.
worry about hurting my feelings. You have to be humble enough as the family or as the care person for someone that's been through trauma to not put you first and your thoughts of how it should go. It's always different.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's powerful. Asking for permission to share some insight before just
Right.
speaking your thoughts and opinions.
And even another step back would be asking questions that lead them to realize it themselves. Sometimes I will have a powerful thought and okay, is that me and my life experience, or is it something I'm
Mm.
supposed to share? But
Wow.
again, I want to empower them to choose to get help. So I want to ask questions. What do you think? And I call them dumb simple. Don't ask some big theological question. Just,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that could have hurt you? Do you think that's true? Why do you think that? How come? Just really, really simple.
Wow, that's awesome. The next question is, Deb, what if the abuse happened before you could speak, as in a baby, and couldn't comprehend or articulate? For example, as you mentioned earlier, a child was in a crib crying, but there was no one to comfort him or her.
Yeah, yeah. My first statement is stop, drop, and pray for help, because
Mm.
you don't want to lead. You don't want to put ideas that don't exist, but you need to let that person again speak when they're old enough to speak. The
Mhm.
symptoms of the oh goodness, what is it called? The body pains that don't make sense, of the crying.
Mhm.
I had a child that screamed in terror, and it happened at night. It was just, there was no logical reason, there was no sound. And the best thing to do is to pray for truth to be revealed. Real simple.
Mm.
Don't have to get into knowing, oh, I wish I would have known this and I wish I would have prayed against that. No,
Right.
just pray for God's truth to be
Mhm.
revealed. What needs to happen here? Who needs to help this child? Is it physical? Is it emotional? What is going on in their mind? Most important thing is the child was not born naughty. The child,
Yes,
there's
yes.
something going on. So an example would be, I also do horses. So a horse can be seen as
Mhm.
untrainable,
Mhm. Mhm.
but that only happens after abuse. trauma,
Mhm.
or somebody letting them get away with naughty and thinking they're cute until they're too big
Right.
to be cute anymore.
Mhm.
And they're reacting to the people that have poured into them. Now, they can come up with stuff on their own too. We had a horse
Mhm.
that pulled my daughter's shoulder out again and again. She would watch her out of the corner of her eye, and as soon as my daughter would straighten the rope in her hand, the horse was gone. She knew she had a little loose grip and she could take care of it. Now, we called in an old cowboy that we trusted that wasn't abusive. No one else. She broke another trainer's finger doing the same trick. The horse just kept doing this trick over and over again. So we called the old cowboy and he said, okay, we're taking her back. And the horse took off once. He grabbed a pole and wrapped her rope around the pole and stopped her. She went to take off the second time. He stopped her right in her tracks to begin with. What he did with her was so ridiculously simple. He brought her back to the lesson she would have learned from mom and reminded her, this is how we behave. And it was 2 minutes fixed. Reminding them who they are, reminding them whose they are, reminding them and speaking life. So say this baby that was in a crib crying at night and just had tears, stop, drop, pray, and start speaking life. So you are a child of God. You are created for amazing things. You are calm. You are peaceful. Speak life. So, and it's hard to do, so you might need to write it down so you can read it in the moment the emotions are so high.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. The next question is, Deb, what negative impact does trauma have on relationships?
The trauma undealt with will destroy a relationship. And in order for a couple to have a healthy relationship, of course, the perfect scenario is God's first to both individuals, and they've surrendered all their baggage to God. That's not the normal case, but that's the perfect scenario. So then what we like to see and like to help people with is getting rid of their hurts, their traumas, the things that have happened in the past by walking through healing and from a biblical perspective, putting God back on the throne instead of all the trauma, and so that they can walk into the relationship with a clean slate. And then in that relationship, they'll be able to be united in Christ and together and make decisions as God would make the decisions that are biblically sound. So.
It's so good. So good. All right. If you have any questions, please type those into the comment box so that I can ask Deb. So my next question, Deb, is what are some coping strategies and or skills for trauma?
So one of the first things first would be a lot of people use breathing exercises, and it's one of the things they'll learn early on from their caregiver or their counselor. We use it as well, a little differently. I ask people to first take a deep breath, calm and paced, breathe in goodness, breathe out the junk. And then as you're breathing in and out and calmly, breathe in joy, breathe out fear. Whatever it is that your thoughts are going to, put in the good truth to replace the painful hurt that's there until you're able to calm your breathing and calm your heart rate. And if you start with 3, check where you are, do 3 more, and try to get to a point where you're finding joy in your calm down. One skill. Another skill is, we have another page that actually would be helpful with that, is it's called Who Are You Listening To? And it's another handout. And this is a helpful tool because things go through your mind and you think it's just you, that they're normal. They're not God speaking.
Right.
If they're not encouraging, edifying, lifting up, bringing life into something, it's not God.
That's right. That's right.
So this page, we can take, what's the tone like? What is, are you being encouraged or discouraged? Are you being brought guilt from the past, or are you being released from the past? So are you being rejected, or are you being drawn to God? So it helps clarify what you're doing, and it will also help you work through, no matter what issue you're going through.
Good, good, good. All right. So let's see. Should a person seek help if he or she has experienced trauma?
Oh, definitely. There's sometimes people experience trauma and they seem to do quite well, don't seem to have something going on. But history shows that there's some things built down in your psyche that might come back to haunt you later at times where they don't belong. So I highly recommend to seek help. And there's different kinds of help. Counseling is a valuable and valid service. And you can work through therapy. You can be referred for medication if needed be. I have a lot of people that don't want to take medication. That's not our entourage to talk you out of it. Our entourage is follow the professional that's trying to get you relief until you can emotionally sustain it by yourself later. So follow that surface. Our ministry is a little different because the biggest difference between counseling and us is we strictly work from a biblical perspective. The care and the results can overlap. It's really something that would be a both instead of an either or, because we are working from a biblical perspective. We're looking at building that relationship with God again, and what is truth versus what are the worldviews.
All right. Thank you. All right. Tell us about Love and Grace Healing Center and how it can help individuals work through the trauma.
So Love and Grace Healing Centers has been around since 2017 as an official 501c3, but we started back before 2010 and been under different and various names. So Love and Grace's name became official then. What we do is we have just a couple staff members, and I think the other day I counted 20 volunteers. And they're people that have gone through the program themselves, often have revealed trauma that they worked through while going through the process, and now want to give back. So Love and Grace Healing Centers offers that peer-to-peer, people-to-people care. Usually if you come in, you're going to meet with two people that work together as a team. We also do Zoom. In Muskegon, people can make it to our office quite easily, but we have people out of state coming in for care as well. So, yeah.
Do you work with children?
We work ages 4 through 100. So I think our oldest right now is maybe 87. We do work with children in our office, and we have children at camp in the summer, and we also see children in one of the school districts. We actually see them during their school day. It's our goal someday to be in every one of the school districts, but I need a few more volunteers.
That's so needed. Tell us about your equine therapy.
So we have done children's camp, and that's a one-day camp where we have horses and teach the same lessons we teach in the school, but from the eye of a cowboy and a horse. And the kids get to ride horses that day, and it gives them more of an opportunity to see how to apply what they've been learning, and it's a much a lot of fun, and gives us an opportunity on that day to actually share cowboy gospel. That's not something we can do at the school. Our goal at Love and Grace is to always be able to meet people where they are. And so it's same as when I met you, you were in a medical facility, and that was our goal there too. People come from all walks of life, and we meet them where they are.
Okay. Are there any qualifications one must meet in order to participate in that day camp?
No, last year we're almost sold out. Probably we're oversold out. So it's just a matter of getting your registration in. In the past, we opened it up first to our students that come from the school system. We had more volunteers helping out last year, and more horses. So we ended up opening it up to public. It generally is in early July. It's probably the second week of July. And there's a fee of, well, it's about $150, but we usually have scholarships, so it's only $35. So it goes pretty quickly.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Deb, that I may have forgotten to ask you?
The only thing that you asked a question, is like, I don't know if I want to even answer this yet, but I'm gonna.
Okay. All right.
What's up next? So, and we are looking forward to taking some of these materials and actually getting them publishable is one of them. Putting all the stories in between the worksheets and whatnot. But one of the current things that is not well known is we love to work with groups, and that might be caregivers needing encouragement or some tools in their tool belt. It might be employee program. It may be, oftentimes, is a church program or another nonprofit, either wanting to have training for their team or wanting to have care for their people. Love and Grace has some services, like the art sessions are $45 a class. Camp is $35 usually. Group sessions, you can do a group session for 2 hours and pay $400 and invite as many people as you want. It's not a per person thing. So we just want more people to know what is available to them. And traditionally, we've done groups like, this is everything we do. We now can do a bit of that and simplify it, or we can do topical. So if you're finding there's a lot of anger issues, we can do that. Like for the school, they really are looking at, man, we have so many kids that are angry. Well, let's talk about anger then. So and take the label of anger equals a bad person away, and replace it with something like anger equals I'm stuck and frustrated. So there's so many topicals. We can teach churches, how do you work with somebody that is gone through loss, is expecting loss to happen, lost a job, lost a person, whatever it is, or how do you work through all the anxiety and the stress and the depression and the suicide things that come to you nowadays. And people expect everybody in the church to know, and they're just not trained in it.
That's right.
Even your pastor might get a class on how to listen well, but that's about all they offered at my seminary. So
yes. Wow. So I'm going to ask a question about the caregivers group. So could that be something that a person who has an autistic child attend?
Yeah, it could be, because it's so important. Someone who has an autistic child will often begin to feel that they're a failure. Failure as a parent, and then they're so strung out and so tired that they might feel like they're a failure in everything that they touch. And building them back up and encouraging them and giving them a place to speak is so valuable. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And then one last question. Can you tell us about the paintings that are in back of you?
Yeah, there are a couple paintings that we've done in therapy sessions, so
Mm,
or in sessions, art class. So the one up here on the top, this
mhm.
one is not my normal style, but actually had a ton of fun. But it is representing of the cross up on the hill and the stone being rolled away and an angel peeking out. And it's just
Wow.
suggestions. And I actually painted an original that was much more detailed for one day in God camps. But this painting we can paint in 2 hours. And as we talk about it, no matter which painting it is, can you see the ones on the floor? I don't know if you can see the ones that
Like
are
the top
lower.
of it, the top of it, I
So
can't. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
down here. So
Mm-hmm,
these ones, I do a lot of landscape, seascapes, nature scenes. And we
mm-hmm,
start with a white blank canvas and we lay our hand down and we pray about whatever's on our mind, lay it on the canvas. Then we cover it with red. The whole canvas is painted red, representing the blood of Jesus. And then as we paint, we talk about things from our life that get ugly, because there's a stage of the painting that is like, oh my gosh, what happened there? None of these paintings are finished, actually. They're all works that were in progress. And I do have some finished versions of them that we can use as our goal.
mm-hmm.
But as you build layers, it's just like life. We build
Right.
layers, and some
Mm-hmm,
of them are not so pretty. And then you add the touch of light. So especially if we're doing a landscape and we've got a little sun or a moon and the light
mm-hmm,
starts shining through, or even on the
mm-hmm,
cross up here on the one on top, once we add that light to our life, it brings life to everything. And that is symbolic of course, Jesus Christ is the light of the world. He is the light of our life. He is what sustains us. And that comes through in the paintings. Some of the paintings will start with a story in Genesis. God created the heaven and the earth, and they separate it. And as we paint the sky and separate it from the earth and separated the waters. And then I pick on King David for a while because people are like, oh, you don't know how bad I am. I'm a terrible person. I've done all these
right.
things. It's like, have you talked to or read the stories of King David? He was adulterous. He had a gang. He killed people. He did a lot of
Mm-hmm,
stuff.
mm-hmm,
God still called him a man after God's own heart. So, and then we'll work out to the cross. So, I've had people leave our sessions, and the best compliment I got was another nonprofit who had actual art therapists come in and work on trauma and left their people more traumatized. I
mm-hmm.
teach in a way, we're not doing individuals when we're doing group, but we're talking, and I teach in a way that you leave with hope and leave with realizing that life's not perfect, but what you did is just uniquely you. And it's something, Revelations 12:11, and God will use it for his glory and turn it around to be good. Evil is not good. Bad things are
Right.
not good. And people can choose to not be good. Even good people can choose to not be good.
Mm-hmm,
That's not God, but
mm-hmm,
he will take all their stuff and switch it around so someone else will be touched by their story, especially these
mm-hmm,
trauma stories.
mm-hmm. So turning those ashes into beauty.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
most definitely.
mm-hmm. It's so powerful. Thank you so much, Deb, for joining us on this evening and giving us so much information regarding trauma. Uh, for those who might have any questions, feel free to either email Deb or myself, or you can ask your questions in the comment box. I thank you again for joining us and have an awesome, awesome week ahead of you. And we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.